Here, we will conduct a detailed, easy, and summarized analysis of the case Marbury versus Madison. We will summarize the case, discuss its importance, and highlight the most important aspects to know, both for students and lawyers. We will also answer the most common and essential questions for anyone wanting to learn about this famous case. Analysis of Marbury versus Madison. Foundation of judicial review in United States law. Marbury versus Madison stands as a cornerstone in United States jurisprudence, fundamentally shaping the landscape of American constitutional law. Decided in 1803, this landmark case established the principle of judicial review, empowering the judiciary to nullify legislation that contravenes the Constitution. This in-depth analysis delves into the intricacies of the case, its transformative impact, the legal frameworks underpinning its application, and its enduring relevance in contemporary legal discourse. Tailored for legal practitioners and students, this examination offers a nuanced understanding essential for navigating and appreciating the complexities of U.S. legal precedents. Case overview. Marbury versus Madison originated from a political conflict between the outgoing Federalist administration of President John Adams and the incoming Democratic-Republican administration of President Thomas Jefferson. William Marbury, appointed as a justice of the peace in the District of Columbia, sought a writ of mandamus to compel James Madison, Jefferson's Secretary of State, to deliver his commission. The refusal to deliver the commission led Marbury to petition the Supreme Court for enforcement. Detailed analysis. Establishment of judicial review. Chief Justice John Marshall, presiding over the case, articulated the principle that the Supreme Court holds the authority to review acts of Congress and determine their constitutionality. This doctrine of judicial review serves as a critical check and balance within the federal government, ensuring that neither the legislative nor the executive branches exceed their constitutional bounds. Constitutional framework. The decision primarily interprets Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, which delineates the judiciary's role. Notably, the case scrutinizes Section 13 of the Judiciary Act of 1789, which purportedly granted the Supreme Court the power to issue writs of mandamus. Marshall concluded that this provision extended the court's original jurisdiction beyond what the Constitution permits, rendering it unconstitutional. Impact and modifications. Marbury versus Madison fundamentally redefined the judiciary's role, transitioning it from a passive arbiter to an active guardian of constitutional integrity. This paradigm shift not only empowered the judiciary, but also reinforced the supremacy of the Constitution over legislative acts. Legal basis and amendments. The case leverages the supremacy clause of Article 6, establishing that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Judicial review finds its grounding in the judiciary's inherent authority to interpret the Constitution, a power implicitly recognized by the framers, but explicitly affirmed in this seminal ruling. Contemporary applicability. Today, Marbury versus Madison remains a foundational precedent, invoked in numerous cases where the constitutionality of legislative or executive actions is contested. Its principles underpin decisions across various domains, including civil rights, federalism, and administrative law, ensuring that all branches of government adhere to constitutional mandates. Beneficiaries and adversely affected parties. Judiciary gains significant authority to interpret and invalidate unconstitutional laws. Citizens enjoy enhanced protection of constitutional rights through judicial oversight. Legal scholars and practitioners utilize the precedent to argue cases involving constitutional interpretation. Adversely affected parties. Legislative branch faces limitations on legislative actions, necessitating stricter adherence to constitutional provisions. Executive branch must operate within the constraints of constitutional authority, potentially limiting executive actions deemed unconstitutional. Implications for legal practice and education. For legal practitioners, Marbury versus Madison serves as a critical reference point when arguing cases involving constitutional interpretation. Understanding its principles is essential for effectively navigating challenges to legislative and executive actions. For law students, the case is indispensable in comprehending the development of the American legal system. It exemplifies the judiciary's role in maintaining the balance of power and protecting constitutional governance. Conclusion: Marbury versus Madison remains a pivotal case in American legal history, solidifying the judiciary's authority to uphold the Constitution. Its legacy is evident in the continuous application of judicial review, safeguarding the constitutional framework and ensuring that all branches of government operate within their designated powers. For legal professionals and scholars, an in-depth understanding of this case is essential for appreciating the dynamics of U.S. constitutional law and its practical applications in safeguarding democratic principles. Frequently asked questions about Marbury versus Madison. What was the background and context of the Marbury versus Madison case? Marbury versus Madison arose during a tumultuous period in American politics known as the Midnight Judges Controversy. In the final days of President John Adams' administration, Adams appointed several Federalist judges, including William Marbury, to the judiciary. However, not all commissions were delivered before Thomas Jefferson took office as the new president. Jefferson instructed his Secretary of State, James Madison, not to deliver the remaining commissions. Marbury petitioned the Supreme Court for a writ of mandamus to compel Madison to deliver his commission, leading to the landmark case. Who were the key parties involved in Marbury versus Madison? The primary parties were William Marbury, who sought his judicial commission, and James Madison, the Secretary of State under President Thomas Jefferson, who was responsible for delivering the commissions. The case was brought before the Supreme Court, with Chief Justice John Marshall presiding. What was the main legal issue at the heart of Marbury versus Madison? The central issue was whether William Marbury had a right to his commission, and if the Supreme Court had the authority to issue a writ of mandamus to compel James Madison to deliver it. This raised questions about the extent of the Supreme Court's powers and the constitutionality of the Judiciary Act of 1789. What was the Supreme Court's decision in Marbury versus Madison? The Supreme Court, under Chief Justice John Marshall, ruled that while Marbury was entitled to his commission, the court did not have the authority to issue the writ of mandamus. Marshall held that the section of the Judiciary Act of 1789 that granted the Supreme Court the power to issue such writs was unconstitutional because it extended the court's original jurisdiction beyond what was defined in the Constitution. How did Marbury versus Madison establish the principle of judicial review? Marbury versus Madison is renowned for establishing the principle of judicial review, which allows the Supreme Court to declare laws unconstitutional. Chief Justice Marshall asserted that it is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is, thereby affirming the court's role in interpreting the Constitution and ensuring that no law or executive action violates constitutional principles. What are the long-term implications of the Marbury versus Madison decision for the U.S. legal system? The decision fundamentally shaped the balance of power among the branches of the U.S. government by affirming the judiciary's role as a co-equal branch with the authority to check the legislative and executive branches. Judicial review has since been a cornerstone of the American legal system, enabling the Supreme Court to uphold the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Why is Marbury versus Madison considered a landmark case in American history? Marbury v. Madison is considered a landmark case because it established the judiciary's authority to interpret the Constitution and invalidated laws that conflict with it. This case set the precedent for the Supreme Court's ability to influence American law and governance significantly, ensuring that the Constitution remains the ultimate legal authority. How did Chief Justice John Marshall's leadership influence the outcome of Marbury versus Madison? Chief Justice John Marshall played a pivotal role in the decision by crafting a ruling that, while denying Marbury his commission, simultaneously asserted the Supreme Court's authority to review and nullify unconstitutional laws. Marshall's astute legal reasoning and commitment to strengthening the judiciary helped secure a lasting legacy for the Supreme Court as a central pillar of the U.S. government. What were the immediate political consequences of the Marbury versus Madison decision? In the immediate aftermath, the decision curtailed President Jefferson's attempts to thwart the midnight judges' appointments, as it limited the Supreme Court's ability to enforce the delivery of commissions through writs of mandamus. Politically, the case underscored the tensions between the Federalist and Democratic-Republican parties and highlighted the emerging role of the judiciary in American politics. Can you explain the significance of the Judiciary Act of 1789 in the Marbury versus Madison case? The Judiciary Act of 1789 was significant because it expanded the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court beyond what was specified in the Constitution. Marbury versus Madison challenged this expansion, leading the Supreme Court to declare that part of the act unconstitutional. This decision reinforced the principle that any law contrary to the Constitution is void, thereby reinforcing the supremacy of the Constitution and the role of the judiciary in upholding it.